guys, it's Roy here from RWOCO12 and EpicDroid.com with a quick video today on the NVIDIA SHIELD Android TV. Today we're going to be looking at the original 2015 model, comparing it to the 2017 model, putting them side by side, pinning down all the differences, even down to the fonts on the buttons. We're going to be looking at all of those and telling you what's different so that you guys can make a decision on which NVIDIA SHIELD Android TV would be right for you. Do you want the 2015 model, or do you want the 2017 model? Or do you want both? We're going to let you guys decide. But let's go ahead and we're going to dive right on in. We're going to first look at the NVIDIA SHIELD box itself. So here we have the 2015 SHIELD and here we have the 2017 SHIELD. And as you can see, they are a little bit different. Most of those differences are cosmetic. As far as the internals go, they are essentially the same. They both come with a Tegra X1 processor. They both come with 3 gigs of memory. And they both come with a 16 gig hard drive. There is a 500 gig version of the SHIELD. That's a SHIELD Pro. And that looks like this. And it will look like that with both the 2015 and the 2017 version. Another thing that's different is that the Pro version retains the ports that they took off of the 2017 basic version. So the biggest changes you're going to see are with the size of the device. The new one is a whole 40% smaller than the original one. It comes with a 6.25 inch width, it comes with 3.875 inch length, and it's 1 inch tall. So from top to bottom, it's going to be 1 inch deep. The original one was 8.25 inches by 5 inches, and again 1 inch deep. So the depth didn't change, but the width and the length did. So quite a big difference there. So with that decrease in size, there was also a decrease in weight as well. The original one weighed in at 23 ounces. That's a pound and a half. Now the new one is just 9 ounces, so not even a full pound here. So the change that I like the least on the NVIDIA SHIELD TV is this one here. This on the original one was a capacitive touch button. You hold it down to pair new devices, you touch it to turn it on, you touch it to turn it off, and it controls all of that. It was super easy to pair new devices, it was super easy to turn it on, and super easy to turn it off. Here on the new one, it's just a piece of plastic with a logo on it. It doesn't do anything. You can still turn it on when you use your remote control or when you use the controller, and you can use those to turn on the device, and you can go ahead and you can use those to pair additional devices. However, I do miss having the capacitive touch and the ease of pairing new devices that it brought to it. Another little change that we have here is the glass for the light. Here on the new SHIELD, it is a green piece of plastic that has a light behind it. Here on the original SHIELD, it's just a clear piece of glass or plastic that has a green light behind it. So here we have the back of the NVIDIA SHIELD TVs, and as you can see, there were a couple of changes. The first one, and this is a very minor one, and it's really just my OCD, but there are 2 little screws here that we have on the back of the new one, and there are no screws here on the old one. Then here we have a micro USB port and a micro SD card slot. So those are the 2 biggest changes that we have on the back of the device. However, I found that those didn't make that huge of a difference. Most SD cards that people have weren't fast enough to be able to support the type of access rates that you needed on the NVIDIA SHIELD to get a good quality gameplay in there. And the micro USB port, that's really just meant so you can plug it directly into your computer if you wanted to root it or do other things like that to it. And honestly, this device doesn't need to be rooted, so I never had any issues with that. The 2 USB 3.0 slots, they do provide the additional storage that you need. Plug those into an external hard drive or into a flash drive, and you're good to go. So we've got one more change here, and this is on the bottom of the device. It is something that you are never ever going to see, except for maybe when you first open the device. I have to include it in here. I mean, if I'm going to include screws, I have to include this kind of stuff too, just to cover my bases. But as you can see here, there is a slight texture. It looks kind of like it's a metallic look to it. It is a rubber just with a texture on it that holds the device in place. It's a solid rubber foot. Put it flat down on there, and it's never going to slide around. They have the same thing over here, however they've changed the texture, so instead of that brushed metal look, it is just a rubber pad that has a slight texture to it to help grip the table surface or the counter or whatever it is that you're putting it on. But other than that, those are all the changes that we have on the NVIDIA SHIELD. If you saw something we missed, let us know. But next, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a look at the remote. So here we have the 2 remotes. Here we have the original one, and here we have the new one. And so the biggest change that you're going to see here is the fact that there actually is a remote in the package. The original one was a separate product, and you had to pay $50 for that to get it. The new one is included in the cost of the NVIDIA SHIELD, and they did it without raising the price of the NVIDIA SHIELD. So it now comes with the SHIELD, it comes with the remote, and it comes with a controller, whereas before it was just the SHIELD and the controller. So the first thing that's different on the device itself, other than the fact it's included, is the brushed metal. They had a brushed and textured metal on the front of the device right here, and then on the back of it. I really liked the look of that, and I really liked the texture of it. It felt cool in the hand, it was always comfortable, and I really enjoyed having it. They got rid of that, but I'm actually kind of glad that they did. Now they have a plastic here, as well as on the back, and it's a slightly textured piece on the back. The front, I don't really notice much of a texture to it, but they got rid of that brushed metal, and the advantages that provides is that when I use the remote, I always find that I'm dropping it, but I don't have that problem with the new one. I get a better grip on it, and it's not so slick in the hand. The other change that's on the front is the microphone grill. Up top here we have a little grill. It's just got a couple of holes in it in order to give you the use of the microphone. On this one, they took away the grill and they just used a couple of crosshatched pieces of plastic. The other change that you're going to see is in the thickness of the remote. It's not much thicker, but it's a little bit thicker, and that thickness provides the awesomest feature of the new remote, and that is the fact that it doesn't need to be charged. The old one had a micro USB charging port here on the bottom, along with the headphone jack. So the new one got rid of the headphone jack, and it also got rid of the charging port. So if it doesn't have a charging port, how are you going to charge it? That's the question that people always ask me. Well, you don't need to. This comes with a battery in it that is good for up to at least 1 year of use and never needs to be charged. I did find that pretty much every time I used this, I was having to charge it. So that's an awesome feature that I absolutely love. The missing headphone jack, I don't miss it one bit. I used it a total of 1 time in the year that I had the original NVIDIA Shield, just so that I could test it out for my initial review. So I do not miss my headphone jack at all. As far as other changes, there is one other change, and that is that they included a IR blaster in the new remote. So let's go ahead and now let's look at the controllers. So here we have the NVIDIA Shield controller, and this is what makes the new device, and this is what makes it totally awesome and makes it so much better than it was before. So yes, if you want to get the new Shield, you can use the old Shield and just get a new controller, and you would essentially have the new Shield. But it's totally worth it if you don't have the Shield to get the new one. I would recommend getting the new one rather than the old one if you're getting a Shield for the first time. So the Shield controller, what makes it so different is, first off, you can see they took the space-saving changes that they made to the Shield device, and they implemented them here on the controller as well. There's a lot of changes here on the front of the device, and most of them, again, are just cosmetic. One of the first things that I noticed was that they changed the font size on the buttons here. The font size on these ones is much larger than it is on those ones. Not a huge difference, but it does make it so it's easier to see, especially if you're learning how to use the Shield for the first time. Another change is here on the directional controls. There is a circular thing, and there's a little diagonal button on these ones that you can use. This one just has the 4 directional keys, but you can still use it diagonally when you push them. You just push in that direction and you get the same effect. Another change is right here in the center. This button is a capacitive touch button. You press that, it lights up, and it turns on the Shield, or it turns on the controller so it will work with the Shield that's already on. So that is no longer a capacitive touch button. Now it's a press button. I really, really like that, because sometimes this capacitive touch button, it wouldn't respond. I'd have something on my hand or my fingers, and it just didn't work. Another change they made here is these are also capacitive touch buttons. You had your back, your home, and your menu buttons. They've moved those down here to the bottom, and so now you have your back, your menu, and your home there. A lot easier positioning and a lot easier to access those buttons and to use them. This here now is just decoration, doesn't do anything. But then you have your microphone spot up here. You had it up here as well. It's a little bit closer to the front and a little bit easier to use. The joysticks here now have a texture on them. Before they just had a flat surface with a couple of dots to help you keep your fingers in place. Now it's a little bit deeper of a groove, and there's the texture on the outside in order to give you a better grip. They changed the outside of those, so they now have that grid-like texture that you see around the rest of the device on the surface. Whereas before it was just a flat piece of plastic that had a slight raise on it. Here in the center, there is the volume control, but this is how you control your volume on the new Shield controller. Here on the old one, you had a button here and here that would increase and lower the volume. This also doubled as a trackpad, so I would pair this with my NVIDIA Shield tablet and I could use it as a trackpad, and it was kind of a nice little extra feature there if you had the Shield tablet. Another big change is that they took away the since they took away that trackpad, you no longer have to hold this in such an awkward position, and you can now hold it more comfortably in a more ergonomic hold, and so that you're able to use the controller more effectively. It's also nice because I found that if I was using it, especially with my kids, that they would always be pushing that volume control button up and down when they were trying to use the controller. So if you had smaller hands, it was always getting in the way of being able to do the game effectively. So hidden in these 2 grips here is also dual haptic feedback, so that when you're playing the games, you can actually feel the games. It vibrates when you get hit or when you're jumping off a cliff, and if you're playing No Man's Sky, when you use your jetpack, feel that vibrate there, and so it gives you a little bit more of a depth to the game and allows you to enjoy the game that much more. So here up top, you're going to notice a couple of other changes. The first thing I noticed was the micro USB port has been centered. I have OCD, like I said earlier, and it was driving me crazy that these were unbalanced. It's now nice and balanced right there in the center. They now have the Shield logo right there as well. And here on the old one, they just had the micro USB port and they had a headphone jack. Now you may be asking yourselves, where's the headphone jack? Don't worry, it's still there. I did find that I use the headphone jack when I'm using the controller, not necessarily on the remote, but I do use it on the controller, but they just moved it around to the bottom of the device. Here we have the two different trigger buttons. As you can see, they are now closer together. Don't worry, you're not going to hit both of them at the same time. There is a slight raise from one to the other, and the way that they're positioned, it fits very comfortably, and I didn't find that I was ever hitting both of them at the same time. Whereas on this one, I did find that I had to stretch sometimes to hit the top or the bottom, and it was just a little bit more uncomfortable. Now here on the bottom we have the last change, and so this is the new one again, and as you can see here, there is the headphone jack as I promised. It's nice and it's tucked away there so that you don't have to worry about it getting in the way. They did take away the NVIDIA logo here that they had on the original one, but other than that, they're basically the same. So all in all, again, like I said earlier, I would totally recommend the NVIDIA Shield to anyone who is looking for an awesome gaming and streaming device. It is literally the best device out on the market. The new NVIDIA Shield controller is the part that I would recommend if you already have a Shield. I would say just go ahead and get this. It's $60 instead of $200. It's definitely worth the price if you don't have one to get the full deal and get the whole $200 setup. I would highly recommend it. Again, it is $200 for the 16 gig version, the basic model. It is $300 for the 500 gig Pro version, $60 if you want the controller by itself. It's $50 for the remote. And then if you want, there's a $20 vertical stand that will allow you to stand up the Shield straight up and down, so you're not having to lay it flat on that rubber piece that I showed you guys earlier. But if you have any questions about the Shield, about the controller, or the remote, please hit us up in the comments down below and we'll answer those as we are available. And if you don't already, please subscribe to us on Twitter and YouTube so you can stay up to date with all of our latest content. And as always, just wanted to tell you guys thank you for watching, thank you for all your support, and you all have an awesome day.